he essentially needs to outscore Dinkle, Daniels, and Harvey enough that they are not within range. Now, of course, Chris Hudson or Robert Besaw Jr. are guys that could get within range, but it's a lot less likely that you'll see them in the championship hunt. But basically, those first three are the ones that he needs to be concerned with. And even if he doesn't outscore them, he's still sitting pretty as long as he gets a decent finish tonight coming into the final round. So we'll keep an eye on that, but I wouldn't bet on it. It's just something that could potentially happen. Meanwhile, we have a teams championship. And Joey, how's that one sitting?
Well, as you can probably guess, judging by the fact that their two drivers are at the top, the private label team Hype Team is at the top, coming off of a disappointing weekend at the iRacing Indy 500, actually, but they're hoping that this discipline continues to be a little bit better for them this weekend. Right behind them is the SGE eSports Slipstream squad. They're ahead of their sister squads, Octane and Apex, in 4th and 5th, and Love Racing sits there right in the middle in 3rd. There's actually quite a close battle here for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They might be 120 points off the private label team Hype guys, but there's still a fight for 2nd, and they're going to be fighting for that all night tonight.
Yeah, still important to them, that sense of pride, even if they can't beat what have been the top dogs in this season. For today's race itself, it's going to be plenty of laps around here, 145 that they'll be contesting around Texas, with 5 tire sets to each car at the start of the race, and that includes the set that they start on. So watch out for that. This track tends to chew up tires, but with this being a night race, hopefully that'll help it a little bit. It is fixed setup as always, and they don't have a spare car in this series. And with that wide first 2 corners, might think that that would help them be able to spread out. Unfortunately, it's going to send the car right out to that barrier on the outside if you find yourself with a problem. We've seen plenty of drivers end their day there before, and they're going to head off into the qualifying session in just a few minutes, but there's definitely some familiar faces up at the top. Acosta and Dinkle are still up there, and of course Richard Regan Jr. sitting with a good time right now. So I'm expecting the qualifying to not be much different from what we typically see here.
Yeah, all the big names, Acosta, Dinkle, Regan, like you said. But Pat Harvey, he's been on a bit of a hot streak this season. Remember, he won a couple rounds ago in round 7, so he's at the top of the timesheets right now, 29.846, just a little bit ahead of Abner Acosta. But I've been watching Abner Acosta for the last couple laps, and he's been getting a little bit loose. So maybe he's just testing the limits. Maybe it's as good a place as any to find the limits of the track in practice. But I haven't seen much of the same thing from Pat Harvey, so that might just be a little bit of extra comfort from Pat Harvey that could probably direct him to his 2nd victory tonight.
We'll keep an eye on that. I'm sure Acosta would like to deny him on that one. He's been on such a good year. 4 wins, the only driver that's taken more than 1 win so far. So we'll see if Harvey can change that. And the one race that he didn't finish on the podium wasn't terribly good, so that's his drop week right now. But even still, out of 8 races, 7 top 5s for him. So this has been something to admire for Abner Acosta, showing that he's really got himself a handle on the oval side of things now. For so long, we harped on him being a road guy, making the transition, and I'd say at this point, you just call him an all-rounder, as he is good wherever he goes. We're watching a little bit of the warm-up finish up, and I've seen a couple moments like that during this warm-up there, Joey, where cars coming off of 4 look kind of loose. Is that going to be something they're struggling with all day?
Absolutely. That's something I've heard all week, even before this session went up. The fixed races in this next-gen NASCAR Cup car at Texas, the one word that everybody's brought up is loose, and maybe it's actually 2 words, horrifically loose. These cars are very, very hard to drive. They're very unpredictable, which has long been sort of an issue with these next-gen cars, but especially here at Texas Motor Speedway, they're hard to control. Turns 1 and 2, and at the exit of 4 there, they're going to be getting loose, and you're going to want to have those tires under you. You're going to want to make sure that you don't overheat the tires, because that's going to make the looseness even worse. But that's just going to be one of many, many, many challenges that our drivers are going to have to get over tonight.
Well, as they head off to the qualifying session, there's a couple that you're not going to see. Charles Sumner, Waldo Walden, Dustin Griffiths, Zach Osborne, Josh Tellez, Dan McLaren, and Baron Glover all have end-of-line penalties. I don't believe all of them are here today. So some of them obviously won't. Charlie Sumner is here, and so is Waldo Walden. So both of them are going to have to stay put here in the qualifying session, which has just now kicked up. But it looks like Josh Daniels is very quickly out there and on his way. The temperature is down to pretty desirable 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and that'll only continue to get cooler as the evening goes on here at Texas. Kind of hoping that'll help give us some good racing out there, Joey, because as I mentioned earlier, this place likes to chew up tires. So hopefully that'll give the drivers a bit more chance to run side by side and not have to be concerned about tippy-toeing around.
Yeah, this place is not very kind to the tires, but one driver we know is good on tires and good at saving those tires is Abner Acosta. So if this is a race of tire conservation, which hopefully it won't be with these lower track temperatures and the sun continuing to go down, but if it does heat up just a little bit, you know Abner Acosta is going to be there saving his tires and potentially streaking away from the field. But Joshua Daniels, he's not too shabby on saving tires either. I remember a few Darlington performances from him, top 4, top 5 at one of the toughest tracks to conserve tires. So Joshua Daniels, no, not too shabby either as he crosses the line here. 30.5, that's going to be the benchmark, but that's half a second off what he did in practice.
Yeah, and Dinkel's immediately faster than that on his first lap by almost 2/10. So impressive stuff from Trent. Daniels carries on his second lap. Still a lot of drivers that have not set the time yet, but they get around here in 30 seconds, so they have plenty of time to put them down in these 5 minutes. As Daniels hits the second one, let's see if this is any quicker. 30.1 it is, but it's not pole. Trent Dinkel went even faster himself, broke the 30-second mark to a 29.905. Josh Daniels is the next one around. Chris Hudson currently sits in third, waiting on Mark Kalin to put one in, and Richard Regan is just starting up a lap as we see him now through 3 and 4.
Yeah, that second lap is really the faster one here. That's not always the case on some of these tracks, but you can just build up a ton of momentum on that first lap coming through 3 and 4. And that's just instantly going to give you maybe even a full 10th as you approach turn 1. And then as long as you can guide the car through 1 and 2 cleanly and quickly, you're definitely going to make up a lot of time on that second lap. But this is Regan's first lap. He's going to take it pretty normally. He's not going to go all the way down to the white line. He's going to run sort of a lane up, then diamonded down to the apex on the exit of 4. They'll bring it to the line. I imagine this will be over 30 seconds. Yep, 30.5, but wait for that second lap. I think we're looking at maybe a low 30 here.
Still,
never mind. We're looking at 30 degrees of spin in the car, and Richard Regan Jr., bad news for him. That first lap is going to leave him at the back.
Wow, so going to be a rough start, but here's Acosta. He's taken the car out, and where is he going to put it is the question, as he's set his first time at 9th place, second one around for the number 5 car. Is he going to break that 30 mark? No, he goes slower as well. Abner Acosta must have had a loose moment or something. 31.3 is significantly off the pace. So it seems, yes, that second lap is faster, but also a little bit more terrifying.
Yeah, Abner was very, very loose through 1 and 2. He lost the rear end about 3 times, and he did save it, but that's just going to kill that lap completely. As here is Mark Kalin finally going out in the dying seconds of qualifying. He'll have time. He has a full minute. Laps are only 30 seconds long. We'll see what Mark Kalin can do in practice. He did a pretty solid lap. 30.1 wasn't the fastest, but it was about in the middle of the field. If he can replicate that here in qualifying, that'll put him third.
So we're still waiting on Besaw Jr., Johnson, and Kalin. And Mark Kalin's first lap did not count. I wonder if he wrecked on his way around on that first one, as the car almost looked like it was going to get loose through 3 and 4, but he manages it well, drifting it right up to the wall. Let's see if it's going to be competitive or not. 30.5, not that great. 13th for Mark Kalin. And it looks like Scotty Johnson parked it on the back stretch, while Besaw Jr. is going slow on the front stretch, which means qualifying is over. Wow, okay, so some strange circumstances for a few drivers, and Trent Dinkel sees many of his main rivals floundering here today, so he will start from the pole for that number 9 car. Can he capitalize on that and finally take his first win of the season? This is where he really needs to start making some points up on Acosta, as Pat Harvey will be the one starting next to him. He's fourth in the points. After that, you've got Josh Daniels starting on the inside of row 2. Chris Hudson will start from fourth. It is Eric Hogg in the fifth position and Mike Witt in sixth. Fourth row sees Lou Christian and Skip Gandy with Adam Zemke and Eric Papineau on the next row.
Then in P11, Abner Acosta much slower than he would have wanted, so we're going to look for him to move his way forward here. Next to Corey Precker in 12th, Mark Kalin and Richard Regan Jr., another driver who's used to being quite a bit higher up in the field, on row 7. Then Jose the Funky Cold Medina in P15 alongside Tom M. Massey. And then the drivers who didn't qualify: Waldo Walden, Charles Sumner, Robert Besaw Jr., Scotty Johnson, Byron McDonald, and Bobby Anderson round out your 22-car field for tonight's race at Texas.
We got a number of onboards for us as well tonight. So let's take a look at a few of those. And Mark Kalin, of course, is with us once again after finally getting himself a win recently over in the roadside, actually. And then we've got Richard Regan Jr. as well, another regular taking a nice sip with plenty of the water that he has behind him. Corey Precker is back. And then you've also got the likes of Lou Christian here, which is, I think, a new one, using a bit of a filter to try and blur out some of his surroundings. Also, Trent Dinkle, our pole sitter, shows us his perspective this evening. And then finally, back again, it is Eric Hogg, who is going to give us a view from the fifth spot on the grid. Looks like they're just now starting to take off. So we'll get one pace lap, then we'll be on our way. Some of the drivers seem to be predicting quite a few cautions out there. I'm guessing that's due to the looseness that they've been experiencing.
Well, the thing that might prevent a ton of cautions coming out is the fact that there's only 22 cars in this race. It's a short field. It's a smaller field than some of the other PRL Cup races we've seen. So we might have a couple cautions at the beginning, but there comes a point where you wipe out all the cars that could bring out a caution. So hopefully for some drivers who want a long green run, there won't be enough cars to wreck to have a caution fest, but it's entirely possible that we could have a couple wrecks, a couple loose moments, and I guess the drivers up front will probably want to see that because they won't have to waste any fuel and they can just hang out ahead of all the carnage.
And in an ironic twist opposed to what I kept hyping up at the start, where Acosta could clinch the championship, and he still could, well, he started all the way down in 11th with all three that I mentioned, Dinkle, Harvey, and Daniels in the top 3. So it's looking like they are going to make up points, like I said they needed to, if they hope to have a shot coming into the final round. But they really, really need Acosta to not have a good day at all out here. We'll see if he can avoid that pitfall coming from the middle of the pack, as the number 9 is now freed up from the pace car. He has to wait for the green flag before being able to go, and he's being patient on it. There it is. Green flag is out, and he gets on the loud pedal as they accelerate down towards turn 1. A lot of space to fan out. Who is going to find an advantage through here? New drivers really drifting up high, but it looks like most of those not really carrying much speed off the corner. Dinkle will retain the top spot. Pat Harvey runs in second as he cuts down in front of Josh Daniels. So the top 3 do not change here on the first lap. They come around to complete it now.
Harvey running a very high line through the entirety of that first lap. He was high in 1 and 2. He was high in 3 and 4, and it worked out for him because he held off Josh Daniels. But I wonder, will that continue to be the line he takes? It doesn't seem like it because he's just gone down into the same line everybody else is running here. Richard Regan Jr. side by side down the back straight with Skip Gandy. He's going to get back in line, and it seems like the bottom is the place to be in general. It worked on lap 1 for Harvey, but doesn't seem like it's going to work for much longer.
Whoa, but Skip Gandy gets all sorts of loose. He catches the car. No caution. He's very slow, and he's trying to keep it out of the way of everybody. That was right by Abner Acosta as well. Somebody else on the grass. That looks to be Thomas Massey. So the 05 is also trying to get back up to speed, but we remain under green.
Yeah, those are the 2 big loose moments you can easily have on this track out of turn 4 and through the tri-oval, or quad-oval rather, and Gandhi and Imasi both had exactly the same thing happen to them. They both took a trip through the grass, no damage, but they're going to have a lot of ground to make up here. They're both going to be hoping for an early race caution. Luckily, they weren't the cause of it, but they got a lot of ground to make up back there in 21st and 22nd now.
So Josh Daniels in the red 77 being chased by Hudson's 43. They come down into 3 and 4 once again. There's been a little bit of battling in the mid to back of the pack that we've been kind of seeing here and there, but the front looks incredibly calm. And there's Richard Regan Jr., man, making up spots hand over fist. He's already into 8th position. That was Mike Witt that he overtook just now.
Yeah, him and Acosta, I really expected them to move their way forward quickly. They were a lot lower than I think they had the speed to be, and they're proving me right now. Both of them just made their way through Mike Witt. Next up on the list is Eric Haag. Acosta up there is just going to follow him for the moment here. He's been stuck behind him for a little bit, and that's the tough thing about this place. It's hard to get by. You can stick your nose in through the quad oval, but if the driver ahead isn't being as nice as Eric Haag is being right here, you can get your nose chopped off and you can end both of you in the wall. So it's always hard to find a way past the car in front here, but Abner Acosta does it fairly straightforwardly. I think Haag knew that he wasn't the faster of the two here, and he's just going to let Acosta go here.
Don't need a replay on it, but the 8 of McDonald's on the backstretch smacked the inside wall trying to chase the car, and he's carrying on, but certainly seems off pace right now. So yeah, Acosta and Regan making good work on the pace that they could not seem to unlock in qualifying, with Eric Haag now being overtaken for that 6th position. Abner's got a little bit to go up to Lou Christian in the top 5, and it looks like the damage is too much for McDonald. He's going to make a green flag stop for repairs.
Yeah, Byron McDonald, one of our first casualties. You definitely do not want to lose it out of 2. You can save it in the grass if you lose it out of 4, if you're lucky. But if you lose it out of 2, there's a wall right there. It's a remarkably narrow backstretch for a 1.5-mile track, and Byron McDonald unfortunately learned that the hard way.
Still watching this fight for 3rd, with Daniels being chased by Hudson. Ahead of them, Harvey and Dinkle are really pulling away. It's looked like the pace has been quite good, and there was another side-by-side battle for Regan, this time trying to overtake on Haag, coming back onto the quad oval portion. There he is on screen now. He's got the inside. This should be job done down through 1 and 2, and yes, there it is.
Yeah, Regan proving the bottom is the place to be in 3 and 4. He got alongside Haag through the quad oval, and then through turn 1 it was almost no question, but he swerves to block Haag. Haag was not lifting there. That was quite a late move from Regan, but he keeps the position somehow. Haag does get into the back of him, and I can't imagine the driver, the number 89, is going to be very happy after that one.
Certainly not. I think they touched twice, very gently, but twice. And there you see. Let's see how unhappy he is, if at all, as Eric has now been slotted into 8th position. Somebody up to the outside wall. Who the heck was that?
That was Byron. That was the lap car, Byron McDonald. So he was actually getting out of the way. So that's the one bonus of turns 1 and 2. They're about 14 miles wide. You can get out of the way. It's a little bit of a pinch on the exit once you get onto the back straight, but Byron McDonald making use of every square foot of turn 1 and 2, doing a very good job of getting out of the way. But unfortunately for him, he is 2 laps down after making that green flag stop. He could get that back, but doesn't look like he will be getting that back on speed. He's going to need a little bit of luck.
I remember I said it'd be a while before Acosta would get to Christian. I guess a while wasn't that long, because he's already there and is sizing up the top 5. In fact, Acosta's last couple laps looks like they were faster or equal to Trent Dinkle. Abner has plenty of speed in that number 5 machine. What he needs, I think, is a caution.
Here's the cinematic cam of Lou Christian. It's like Jaws. He's looking at Abner Acosta, hunting him down. And Acosta, I call him the tire whisperer all the time, but I do wonder, with the amount of passes he's had to make. Oh, look at that, director Zach Johnson. You call him Steven Spielberg. That's beautiful. But as I was saying, Abner Acosta is the tire whisperer, but he's had to make all these passes. He's been super aggressive trying to move his way forward. So I wonder, will that affect his tire life, or has he managed to take that into consideration and, I guess, slow his roll a little bit and still make those passes?
Film term for all the nerds that care about that stuff. That is depth of field. But in the meantime, as we come out of 3 and 4 once again, didn't seem to be concerning Christian too much. He's just kind of running his own race. And they're also looking like they might be catching up to Hudson and Daniel. So this might become a 4-car fight for third.
Yeah, speaking of depth of field, there's a lot of talent in this field. So while Acosta might be moving his way forward, there's a lot of talent in this field, and it's not going to be easy to continue to move your way forward. He managed to make up a couple spots. He started 11th, he's in 6th, but the first half of that may have been slightly easier, but now you're in the drivers who qualified up here, who have been up here all day, and it's going to become almost infinitely more difficult to start getting by these guys as Lou Christian goes all the way down to the bottom. That was a huge swerve, but Acosta going to pull as sort of a road course switchback here. It's not going to work just yet, but he has the momentum. He just needs to figure out a way to get by.
And Richard Regan Jr. is now suddenly a part of the equation. There he is right there. He's within a couple car lengths and probably going to close this one down as well. Will this start to explode in a moment as drivers try to make up positions or maybe take advantage of people trying to make passes? As we cut down into 1 and 2. Low entry there for Lou Christian. High exit for Chris Hudson. He loses out on the 77 a tad bit. Now Lou Christian might have a chance to try and go on the attack, but he's not close enough through 3 and 4.
Lou's being super aggressive into 1 and 2, and that might help him hold off Abner Acosta in the short term, but that is going to be destroying those tires, being that aggressive through 1 and 2. We're talking about mid-corner speeds. That's kind of the key through 1 and 2. Acosta in the mid-corner, he's bringing it all the way down to about 146. Christian is much, much slower than that just by virtue of taking a much tighter line and by losing a bit more of that tire life as he takes a peek to the inside of the 43 here, but he's not going to be close enough.
Just not there, but Acosta eventually is going to get a good chance, especially if Christian finds his nose chopped off by Hudson. Here's another look to the inside, and then it switches around with the shallower entry for the 21 machine. Love that this is offering up a variety of lines. And look at how much Hudson drifts up off the corner. That's the second time in a row we've seen that. Christian might have a good shot. This time he's going to get the overlap as they fly side by side through 3 and 4. He's going to drift up a little bit. 43 tries to pinch him down, and that makes it a drag race along the front stretch.
Here comes Abner Acosta. Does he dare make it 3 wide? He would not be very smart to do that, and he knowledgeably stays back. But he's going to have another attempt at the switchback here. He's to the inside of the 43 of Chris Hudson, but Hudson on that higher line. He's got the momentum down the back straight. He's going to hold on. So while they might have switched for 4th and 5th, Abner Acosta hoped to make up some positions from that, but unfortunately he's going to have to stick back here, and he's going to be on the attack on Chris Hudson instead of Christian now.
So it just changed faces for him a little bit. And can he do anything on Hudson? I'm sure he's been watching that wide exit from the 43. Let's see if he does it again. And if that opens the door for Acosta. And yeah, look at the car just drift up.
Acosta much slower mid-corner that time. So I wonder if he's trying something different here now that he knows that Chris Hudson is sort of running an unorthodox line. He might need to try something different to get by him. Much quicker through 3 and 4 here, but does he dare stick a nose through the quad oval? He does get to the inside, and it looks like Hudson's not going to fight this one too hard. Acosta gets to the inside, but we'll see if Hudson has the momentum on the outside. Acosta's clear already. I think it's a done deal.
Yep, he's just going to drift on up. Oh, that was close to the outside wall from the 43. And this has been all green flag racing so far. Is Chris potentially trying to save some stuff? Is he letting this happen just because he's trying to preserve what's underneath him? Can you do that by taking a wider exit off that corner?
You would think, but that's the problem with taking a wider exit on almost every oval. You think you're saving tires by taking a little bit of a wider line, steering just a little bit less, but you're also using higher speed through the entirety of the corner. So you're scrubbing the tire for longer at higher speed. So while it might help you to get a little bit of a run to the outside, you might think you're saving a little bit. Sometimes it's kind of counterintuitive. So we'll have to see if Chris Hudson's actually trying to save something, because this is that point in the run around lap 22 where if you're saving your stuff, you might be moving forward. And if you didn't, you're going to be moving backwards. But we have to wait and see if that's actually what's happening.
We got a black flag from Byron McDonald's, and he's in pit lane again. Now, there's not a drive-through or stop-and-go penalty for too many incidents. It's a straight disqualification in this series, so I'm not sure what's going on there. We'll try and get some investigation into it and see if we can figure out what caused that. But what was becoming a 4 or 5 car fight is starting to spread out a little bit. It's still Josh Daniels at the front of this group in third place. Christian, though, after making that pass on the 43, gained on him. Now he's slow off of turn 2. Acosta can't seem to make up much ever since getting by the 43 as well. And then something's happened to Richard Regan Jr. that he has been kind of nowhere ever since he's managed to get into 7th.
Well, that might just be what I was talking about. He might have been a little bit aggressive. He's moved from 14th to 7th, which is great in the short term. But if you've used up all your stuff doing that, 7th is going to kind of be your limit. And unfortunately, it looks like he might actually fall back here because he's got a very hungry pack of Eric Hogg, Mark Kalin, and then a little bit further back, Zemke and Walden. So Regan, we got our first green flag pit stop of the day that isn't for damage.
That's Bobby Anderson in the number 2. Oh, but he's parking it. And he takes a tow. Wonder if he had some contact that we did not see. Trying to check, and I'm not seeing anything. He did have a run through the grass earlier. Wonder if the car is just too much of a handful. And yes, he has disconnected. So is Byron McDonald's. He could not handle the damage on his car. So that's 2 DQs very quickly here in this race. We're down to 20 vehicles left.
Yeah, some of the drivers who are at the back who are hoping for a couple cautions to pack up the field again, they haven't gotten that in these first 26 laps. It's been a long green flag run. So some of those drivers who are a little bit off pace, maybe already 2 laps down or 20 seconds back, they might have just decided that there's no point continuing to drive around if there's nothing to be gained. But still got 20 cars left in the field, and we're actually reaching lap traffic now. Trent Dinkle, your leader, has reached Tom Amasi, who's 30 seconds down. It looks like it'll be fairly straightforward to lap him here. Amasi stays out of the way, but that could be interesting for some of our battles with Christian and Acosta, with Daniels. Lap traffic always difficult to navigate. There's a lot of space for him to get out of the way, but there's always pinch points.
The number 98 was our latest to go and mow the lawn there through the quad oval. This is about 2 laps ago for him, and he's still running. I don't think he lost any positions, but seems to be a pretty frequent theme out here. And that makes me wonder, with this lap traffic, there could be drivers that aren't as confident with their cars. Could that cause issues for our leaders just by proxy of the danger that is the loose cars off the exit?
Well, they can only hope. That's the worst thing that can happen to you. If you're leading a race and a lapped car takes you out, or if you're having a good race at all and you run into a lapped car, that is not what any driver wants to deal with, and that's not what any lapped car wants to have happen either. So Tom Amasi doing a very good job getting out of the way. I don't think we have to worry very much about him, but the next pack that is going to catch him is this 3-way fight between Daniels, Christian, and Acosta. 4-way fight, actually, as Hudson's tagging along the back, but this is going to be interesting. They have to navigate a moving chicane. It's a different part of racing. It's almost a different part of the track, so we'll see who can move their way forward here. Should be fairly straightforward. They seem to just be running in a line of 4 here. None of them are especially close enough to go for a move, but anything can happen.
Well, we're 30 laps in now, and the fears of a caution-filled race so far have been a bit unfounded. There goes the 77, overtaking another of those lapped cars. Tom Amasi just staying off to the right-hand side so that everybody can duck underneath. Christian still trying to catch up to the third-place driver. And we're only, I mean, if the tires feel good enough and they're trying to do this limited on fuel, we're only halfway through the stint here.
Yeah, our old friend Nick Hunter here says that drivers expected to be in the high 60s, the fuel stints. So we're only 31 laps in. We're less than half of a high 60, thinking maybe 67, 68. And that's less than half of the race. So it's going to be a 2-stop, basically guaranteed, unless there's a lot of yellow, which there hasn't been. So drivers might have a little bit of leeway here. They don't have to go 67, 67, and then a short stint at the end. They might be able to split it into even thirds. They might be able to do a longer stint earlier and a shorter stint later, or a shorter stint earlier and a longer stint later. that's the complicated part of strategy, and it's always good to have teammates. So some of these drivers with established teams, the team hype teams, the SGE eSports teams, they might be in very good shape because they can all discuss with each other what they're going to do here on fuel strategy. And some of our independent drivers, well, they got to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, exactly. Well, right now, Private Label has a driver leading, even though Acosta was not able to get up towards the front as quickly as maybe he hoped. Meanwhile, we've got Richard Regan Jr. out here as well in that 56, racing for Richard Regan Motorsports now, as he used to be a Private Label driver. Not so anymore for him. In the meantime, that is Eric Hogg just behind him, with Mark Kalin sitting in ninth place in the number 62. Took a victory in the TCR class, or excuse me, the GT4 class down on Tuesday night. Mark was really proud of himself and deserves to be. It was a long time coming of trying for a win here in the PRL. But right now, he's just running a top 10, and it's been something of a quiet race from what we've seen out of that 62. As we take a glance once again back at that top group, vying for third, and it looks like Acosta has picked up the pace yet again. He's starting to catch back up to Christian.
And that might just be the tire whisperer at work. He might just have more tire under him. And he's got the momentum on Christian, but we've seen Christian be super aggressive into one. He continues to do the same. Runs that super low entry, but he does wash up on exit. Acosta much faster through the center of the corner, and he's got the run. But the question is, can he do anything with it? He's side by side, and he is alongside. So if he can just hold it basically flat here through the final corner, is a little lift, but much quicker than Christian here through the middle of the corner, and this should be fairly straightforward. Acosta's through, and now his sights are set in the top three.
Meanwhile, Chris Hudson trying to get that spot back, and he's going to go low. He can't drift off high now. He's got a car up there in the form of the 21. Is he able to hold the line? Yeah, he is nice and tidy. In fact, keeps the pace well. Job is not done. He's still got the inside down into 3 and 4. Ooh, but he's a little timid compared to that 21 on entry.
Got a little bit high there. He washed up, and it is not completely flat out through 3 and 4. In some cars it is. Some of the older cars it is here at Texas Motor Speedway, but not in this next-gen car. There's a bit of power. You definitely have to lift, and Hudson does eventually get by Christian, but Christian's going to try a little bit of a switchback. He'll have the momentum on exit. Will he be able to get that optimal bottom? No, he will not. So they're both in line here, 5th and 6th. No real chance to work together here. I think Abner Acosta is just going to leave him in the dust, and they will be left to fight for that top 5 spot.
Yeah, this has worked out beautifully for the 5 car. And next on his list is going to be Josh Daniels. I wonder what the pace is looking like compared between Acosta and Dinkel now, because as I said earlier, Acosta was running pretty equal, if not sometimes better pace than the number 9 machine. But that could have adapted. Let's see. And indeed, Abner has been struggling to keep pace. It's very consistently in favor of Trent.
Yeah, it's not a super massive gap, but it is still a gap, and that's why Acosta is 4.6 seconds behind Dinkel. And that's just because Acosta, he might be the tire whisperer, but he's been fighting with other drivers for the entirety of the first 40 laps of this race. So he's guaranteed to have used up a little bit more stuff than Trent Dinkel, who started on pole and has basically been in his own zip code for the first 40 laps of this race. So Dinkel's taking it easy. Meanwhile, everybody behind him is almost a tenth a lap slower.
Okay, well, put yourself in the shoes of these drivers, Joey. You've been out there with it, green flag racing, since the very start of the race. You know, if you're splitting it into thirds, that moment is coming up, at least equally. Do you risk trying to come in banking on the fact that it is going to stay green?
It depends on how big the undercut is. We're looking at lap times that are about a second slower than these drivers know they can do at full speed. So the undercut would be quite powerful if you're able to pull it off. So if you do want to split it into equal thirds, at least in this first stint, you will make up ground if the drivers in front of you choose to come in later. But then in the next stint, and then coming to the end of the race, you will end up having older tires than the drivers who choose to maybe do a 60-60-25. they'll have fresher tires at the end and a shorter run to catch you. So that's always the difficult decision you have to make in a long race like this. It doesn't look like any cautions are going to come out anytime soon. They can always change, but if you're going to make that strategy decision, you have to commit early. You can't be tentative. You have to commit to the undercut, and you have to make it work, and you can't really change in the middle of the race. So that's what all the drivers are thinking here. If you do make the undercut, you're going to have to start committing now.
We're looking at Mark Kalin being chased by Adam Zemke. Mark had a huge moment coming off of turn 4 a couple laps ago. Rode it through the grass, but didn't hit anything. So he's still at pace. Zemke, who is down 1 position from where he began, he'd like to get that back, but Kalin has come up 4. Now, he's not our hard charger. That's a tie between Regan and Acosta at 7 up for each of them. No surprises there, with them having slightly compromised qualifying sessions. So can Kalin keep this from happening again, or maybe he's unhappy with the car? We've seen a couple drivers quit a little early because of the handling, potentially. Are there going to be any that maybe pit early just because they want those fresher tires as well?
Well, I've seen a lot of drivers getting out of shape. Eric Haag got a little bit out of shape through the quad oval a couple times. Mark Kalin, like we've talked about, he's been getting out of shape. Here's Haag racing with Lou Christian now, who Richard Regan Jr. just took care of. Christian does not look to be in good shape here. Oh, that was close with the nose of the number 89. But if Christian was to make a choice to come in here, I think this would be the time to do it. He's losing spots. He's just lost 2 spots in the space of 1 lap. If you're going to pull off the undercut here, you're 6 seconds behind the leader. You might as well commit now. You might as well come in and get some fresh rubber on it. If you're interested in doing that strategy. He might not be. You might just want to do the normal strategy, which, I mean, judging by the fact that he hasn't come in yet, it seems likely, but he is falling through the order. He's 3 seconds ahead of Mark Kalin and the rest of the field, but he's fallen back quite a bit from where he was earlier.
Well, 48 and 49 is going to be the laps that will mark the 1/3 of this race. We'll see if anybody tries to break it up evenly with the way it's been playing out thus far. This is Chris Hudson trying to keep up with Abner Acosta. And kind of curious, let's see, I'm taking a look at Acosta. 31.296 last lap. Daniels 31.211. So Josh a little bit quicker last time by. And well, there we go. There's our answer. Somebody's going to try and shortstop it. Tom Massey, who is already at the back of the field, has nothing to lose, and he is in for service.
Yeah, might as well fight to get your lap back here. He's going to lose a couple more laps being in the pit lane, but here we go.
Pat Harvey. Oh, that's not expected. I did hear, Regan announced that he was pitting in, so he is there. Lou Christian, who's been slipping backwards, pits in. Zemke is in. Whoa, somebody is off into the grass. That was
Mark Kalin again.
Oh, both of them.
Mark Kalin has been out of control these past couple laps. I don't know why he didn't bring it in already, but now that he's already lost all that time, he might as well bring it in this lap, because he's not very comfortable in that car right now. I think he's gonna come in here, and Abner Acosta said he is as well.
I got to think that a lot of these drivers are now responding to those pitting in. If they're going to make a pit, then there's not much to lose there. Might as well try and follow the leader and do that 1/3 mark. So Dinkel's in, and Acosta is in. Eric Haag finally pits. Trying to see if nope, everybody else stays out. So Daniels, Hudson, Sumner, Papineau, Kalin, Besaw Jr. Looks like Skip Gandy's going to stay out, but a lot of them are also now in. Josh Daniels pits. Chris Hudson attacks the cones and does a great job of gaining a lot of time. So instead, Sumner is now going to be our new leader, and Richard Regan Jr. is trying to get his lap back from him.
Sumner and Kalin both stayed out, as did Papineau, which is very interesting. I really thought Mark Kalin would bring it in, but I guess the undercut maybe wouldn't do him so much work or so much help now that every other driver's come in. So now he's trying something else of an alternate strategy. He's lost all this time, might as well go long and I guess hope for a caution eventually to get back to the back of the pack. But you got to do something different. And when every other driver seems to be splitting it in third, I guess the undercut isn't the move for Sumner and Kalin.
And look at the power of the undercut, because Besaw Jr., who is, about 0.8 of a second behind, is now well ahead of the number 5. So that switched things around pretty significantly. Christian had a moment after he was getting up to speed where he got extremely loose. I think that was through 1 and 2. So, in fact, oh my goodness, yeah, I'm going back and checking on mine, and he was all over the place on that one. Still missing almost half the cars, still needing to pit in. And these are the guys that are banking on getting a caution to try and trap some of them a lap down or simply get themselves a bit of an advantage. So far, though, I mean, the tires don't seem to be as great of an issue as we feared, just because of the fact that it has been green for so long. So instead of the cautions giving people chances to gobble them up too quickly, they're all just having to pace them out.
Mark Kalin does finally bring it in. He's not going to go for the longest possible run, but it looks like, judging by the fact that Besaw is still out there, he'll probably do that, as will Papineau, Witt, Johnson, Precker, and Medina. All still haven't come in yet, your top 6. But here is the difference. Eric Hogg on fresh tires, Robert Besaw on 53-lap old tires, and look at the distance he's pulled almost instantly. Besaw did go up to the high line. He did let him by, but you can see the difference that these tires are making. When Besaw does pit, if it is under green, he will likely fall all the way to the back. He might fall a full lap down, but he's hoping for that caution before he has to pit. But I don't know if it'll come yet.
Here's another interesting twist for you. It seems like on fresher tires, Richard Regan is pretty fast compared to Dinkel. Let's see what this one's going to be. 30.2, Dinkel 30.3. Yeah, once again, chopping it down. Now, Regan does have a ways to go. It's about 3.5 seconds to get up to Trent, who is our highest driver to have pitted. Should be our effective leader once everybody takes their stops here. But Richard is just kind of slicing away at that lap after lap. We'll see if that changes as it goes. But also this time it's worth noting that the 56 car has nobody to fight through now.
And that last lap, he was 0.2 quicker. He's been 1 or 0.2 quicker on every lap, but the question is, can he keep that pace up for the entirety of the stint? If he does, he's 4 seconds back. It's going to take him 30 or 40 laps to actually make up that gap. So he's got a long way to go if he wants to join the fight for the win. But if anyone can do it, it's Richard Regan Jr. We know how many PRL Cup races he's won, so he's going to have a strategy here. Hopefully he's going to know how much tire's under the car, and he kind of stagnated in the last stint around 6th or 7th, so we'll see if he has learned anything from that and if he can continue to make up this 3.6 second gap now.
Papineau threw in the towel earlier than his other drivers trying to stay out late. There you can see him returning to the track now, and he is going to lose massive positions, but he'll definitely have fresher tires than those around him by about 3 or 4 laps, it seems. Not sure if that will help him gain on them too much, but you never know. This could wind up working out in the end. So now we just need Precker, Medina, Johnson, Witt, and Besaw Jr. So Besaw now our leader, having not stopped in yet. And we'll hit that halfway mark here around lap 72, 73.
There goes Waldo Walden getting his lap back. That's 15 cars on the lead lap now. Sumner, Kalin, Papineau, and Gandy are the only drivers 1 lap down left, but if they keep up their speed, they'll hopefully be able to get back by Besaw here once he pits, or maybe if he goes much longer, they might be able to catch him under green, because right now Besaw is running 31.7s. Our leaders on fresh tires are running 30.5, so that's almost a 1.5 second difference between the drivers who have pitted and the drivers that are on 59 lap old tires. So it's an interesting strategy call to go as long as possible. If you're at the back of the field, you might as well do it. You have nothing to lose, but it is really not working out at this point in the race.
Pleasantly surprised by the lack of cautions. It's not without trying, I guess you could say, because they've definitely been loosey-goosey off of this corner. That was Medina that Dinkel just went by, so that was 4 position, even though Medina's on a different strategy, which we can probably expect then that guys like Medina and Precker are going to go a lap down once they finally pit in. It's the 9 now down to 11.4 seconds behind our leader, Robert Besaw Jr., who carries on for another lap.
And Trent Dinkle is only 3.5 seconds, if I'm doing my math correctly, ahead of Richard Regan Jr. So that battle continues to close with every lap. Now that they're navigating their way through traffic, that's going to be great for Richard Regan to be able to catch Dinkle just a little bit, but unfortunately for him, that's the trade-off. He's going to have to pass those same cars soon, so all that time he gained, he's going to lose if he's not careful here and if he doesn't get through them quick enough. But he is closing. That's a guarantee, but can he continue to close and can he continue to bring down that 3.6-second gap is another question.
View from Trent out front with not a whole lot up there, at least for the time being. That might change once they have some pit stops and some drivers find themselves getting lapped by him without a single caution so far in this race. It's been a fun transformation to watch for Trent Dinkle as the year ticked over and they switched from the old Gen 6 to now the next gen car. Trent was hitting his stride, and into the next gen, he just seemed to thrive in that thing and has since been picking up wins, been in contention for championships, as it looks like Scotty Johnson is finally pitting in. So that's our latest to finally have to admit defeat and get his fuel and some fresh tires. Just need Besaw Jr., Witt, Medina, and Precker now, and it looks like Besaw carried on past the start-finish line as we're watching Richard Regan Jr. just ahead of Abner Acosta, and Acosta wants that spot back. He added in the stops a little bit earlier. It seems to have lost it when we weren't looking.
And this is critical here for Dinkle. As these two fight, that gap is going to continue to grow. Looking at the time now, it's 4.2 seconds. So Regan's lost 0.6 of a second in the last couple laps, and now that he's fighting with Acosta, he's going to lose even more. So that's great news for Trent Dinkle, who wants to continue to pull away here. He wants to beat Abner Acosta by as many positions as he can to keep himself alive in the championship. It might be a distant second, but if he can keep himself mathematically in contention for the championship, he's mathematically in contention for the championship. There's not much more you can say. That's all you can really ask for with 2 races to go, or 1 race to go.
Medina is in, and we're now waiting on Corey Precker, who has stretched this out to lap 65 impressively. And yeah, he's motioning as though he's coming down in. That'll be it. Oh, is he out of fuel?
He might be out of fuel. 65 laps is a very, very long way to go. And yeah, he's sputtering. So I think he's out of fuel. I think he went just a little bit too long. This really did not work out for Corey. He already fell down to 8th on those old time. Oh, he's got a meatball flag as well. It's all falling apart for Corey Precker.
Yeah, I have to check and see. There is some damage on the right rear.
Oh, he hit the wall as he was navigating through one. I don't know who that was coming into the pits, and it was right in front of Daniels and Hudson. If we take a look at the replay, he didn't run out of fuel. He hit the wall. And look at this. This is terrifying for Hudson and Daniels, right through the middle.
Wow. That could have been a lot worse. For Precker, it was pretty bad, naturally, but for Daniels and Hudson, fantastic avoidance of a scary situation. That's probably going to put Precker a few laps down here as he has to wait for the car to take repairs. So now that our first pit cycle is over, Dinkle leads Richard Regan Jr. and Abner Acosta. There's your podium. Pat Harvey falls down from the front row into 4th place. Doesn't seem to be able to hang quite as well. And then Josh Daniels having a similar problem, falling 2 spots down into 5th. So Richard Regan Jr. and Abner Acosta have been forced to play catch-up ever since the drop of the green, having not qualified very well today. So they've been put on the back foot here, Joey. And again, I think this mostly comes down to what I said very early in the show. They need a caution.
Unfortunately, that's a situation that we've all found ourselves in once or twice, that the only way you can catch up to a very distant leader is a caution. They can't work together here. They can't really do anything. Even if they pull an undercut and pull a Corey Precker and go 65 laps to the end of the race by pitting on lap 80, they might be able to get ahead of Dinkel for a moment, but they're going to be on awfully old tires at the end. So really, the only hope these two have is that a caution comes out. And I guess the secondary hope is that they're not the two who bring the caution out. So they're basically just going to be riding here for the next couple laps and hoping and praying that something either happens to Dinkel or a caution comes out to close them all up.
Since that last pit cycle, those who did stay out were very much hurt by that. They don't want a caution because Besaw Jr., Mike Witt, Scotty Johnson, all those guys are now a lap down because of the time spent on the old rubber. So we are watching Regan Jr. and Acosta along with Harvey back in third, or Harvey back in fourth rather. But at best, they might wind up having to fight amongst themselves if it gets towards the end of the race. We're still not seeing a caution because they don't seem able to hunt down that number 9. And we are past the halfway point as well in this race. So the drivers are now trying to size up how they want to play the rest of the strategy, if they like that evenly distributed strategy that they did before.
Just riding in line here. When you're in this sort of pack, when you know that you're basically just waiting for a caution, hoping for a caution, you have to make sure you don't lose focus though, because we've seen a couple of loose moments, a lot of loose moments from drivers like Haag and Kalen. And as we get late in the run here, even though these drivers are probably saving up their stuff a little bit just to maybe catch Dinkel a little bit at the end of the run, they've got to make sure they don't lose focus. They got to make sure they don't lose it out of 4 and lose even more ground. They've got a little bit of a, somebody's in trouble. That's the number 21. No, that's number 20 is Skip Gandy.
And I think that's not the first time for him. Trying to check and see what happened. If he maybe smacked the wall, is that where we're seeing damage?
That's Mike Witt, by the way. Sorry, Skip Gandy. That's Mike Witt. I don't think he hit the wall, but he must have gotten loose. Yeah, he got loose through the quad oval out of 4 and just took a big old journey through the grass. He didn't lift. Good for him. The grass actually has some decent amount of grip here, but he lost quite a bit of time, and he's a lap down in 17th, and his day unfortunately got a little bit worse.
So, in terms of the championship, this has gotten fascinating because Trent Dinkel is the only one of the 3 that is now ahead of Abner Acosta. Daniels and Harvey both find themselves behind him, although Harvey is very close to that number 5 right now. We saw a little bit earlier as the 9 puts another lap on somebody. Yeah, there they are right now. That is the 67 of Harvey chasing the 5 of Acosta, who is also on the tail of Richard Regan Jr. But this may not be the longest race here, Joey, but it is still a race that requires some patience and maybe just a little bit of endurance. We still have 70 laps out there to wrap this one up. And I wonder if these are drivers just ticking off those laps to try and get themselves to where they can attack.
It pretty much is, and like I said, you've got to keep the focus in a race like this. It's not a sprint race. It's 145 laps. It could be much longer, but it's still pretty long. It's a 2-stop race guaranteed, so there's a lot of endurance that's required. It's difficult to stay focused when you're not racing somebody else, when you're just running in line here. All these drivers know that they're all on the same page here. They all want to catch Trent Dinkel, but they don't want to overlap here and get into each other and slow each other down even more than they already have. So it's really tough when you're a driver like Abner Acosta who really wants to make this move. You really want to keep racing, but if you do that, you're only going to lose.
Racing isn't just about who's fast over a single lap. It's who gets to that finish line first on the last lap. So he's got to think about it. He's got to try and mull it all over and figure out what is the quickest way to get there. Right now, just pulling along in the toe of the 56 seems to be serving him pretty decently. So why rock the boat? And then Pat Harvey definitely seems to be thinking the same thing back there in 4th, just kind of hanging tough and holding on to them. Less than 70 to go now for our drivers, and still have only lost 3 of our 22. McDonald, Anderson, and Precker. And Massey is the last driver running. He's 2 laps off the lead right now in that 05 machine.
I actually saw a couple laps ago, if we want to look at Robert Besaw Jr., he got his lap back. He was one of those drivers who went very, very long, who lost his lap after pitting, but he did get it back, and he's running much quicker laps than everybody else ahead of him. The problem is, the trade-off is he's now down in 14th. He's actually made up 5 spots from his starting position, but he's only ahead of a few undamaged and unwrecked drivers. So while he might be on a journey forward, I think his limit might be the top 10 if he can pull this off entirely. He'll get a short run at the end if he goes as long on this run as he did in the last one, but he's going to be fighting here for the latter half of the top 10, likely if we go green to the end. And that is unless he pulls an alternate strategy. Maybe he does come in early here and go for the 60 laps to the end instead of doing another 60 lap stint and then running 20 to the end.
Scott Johnson had a penalty cleared because he slid through the infields and then found himself actually on pit lane. So they decided to wave that black flag for speeding since he was trying to actively save the car and was looking not to cause more problems with everybody else. But the time and the damage was still done for the 07. He's down into 18th position, currently riding behind Charles Sumner. But,
yeah, I did that in the C fixed race earlier this week. So Nick Hunter, I wish you were there. You could have cleared my black flag.
Yeah, this is definitely a patience game right now. We're not seeing a whole lot of action. This is drivers trying to get the laps down. I'm trying to remember the last time that we had a lights to flag, fully green race in PRL Cup Series that wasn't a road race. They did have a few issues early on in the next gen cars here in the PRL with a lot of cautions, and the races having the reverse problem of timing out. They limit these to 90 minutes, or otherwise you will not go to a lap limited race. It'll be time limited. But looks like we're now hitting the point where that is not as big of a concern, especially here today, where Texas has allowed them to push hard. Mike Witt pushing hard down into pit lane. Is not sure if this is a scheduled stop. I'm checking to see if he hit anything, and I'm not seeing anything right now. So this must be just a part of his plan, but this is very early.
Well, he's in with Skip Gandy, who's also an SGE eSports car, so maybe they're working together here. This actually is sort of the limit. If you pit now, you can make it to the end. 61 laps to go. Both of them are good to the end here, but unfortunately, they find themselves 2 laps down. So if we do get a caution, they're not going to cycle their way to the front of the field. They're still going to be a lap or 2 down. But might as well try it. When you're that far back, you've got nothing to lose. So them 2 teammates coming in, trying to fight their way forward. Maybe something crazy will happen at the end of the race, but for now, they got a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah, might as well roll that dice, but you can't always expect it to give you the win. Meanwhile, coming onto the backstretch, this is still Hudson and Daniels. This is our closest battle on the track right now, and it's for 5th place. Seems like both of them just struggling out there today, each down 2 positions. In fact, everybody up there towards the front, Harvey, Daniels, Hudson, Hogg, all have lost 2 positions equally amongst them, and they're all together in order from 4th down to 7th. So not sure what's going on, if this is more down to Dinkle and Regan being the 2 that have made up those spots, and everybody else there in that group would just be where they normally are instead at this stage. But as we come around to start lap 88 now for these drivers, they're going to be closing in on that next mark. Should be seeing it at lap 97 or 96 for those that are trying to cut it evenly into thirds and get to the end that way, predicting that that'll be the most time on the freshest tires. As coming across the quad oval. Richard Regan Jr. down to 4.3 seconds behind Trent Dinkle. We were watching the lap comparisons a little bit earlier between other drivers and Trent, but now with Regan, Trent was a 31.1, Regan 31 flat, still chipping away at it. The 56 is not out of this yet.
I think Dinkle's just taking it easy here. He doesn't really have to push especially hard. He has that 4.6 second cushion, 4.4 now, but that could change very quickly as Regan is closing the gap, but it's a very large gap. And talking about an undercut, if Regan or Acosta or Harvey comes in, Dinkle's going to come in right away as well, as to cover him off, because he has such a large lead that he can afford to do that. He's not going to lose anything if he's on especially old tires at the end. He's only going to gain, likely. So there's no real undercut opportunity for these drivers in the top three, which is unfortunate. The only driver I could see pulling something like that off is one of the drivers from like 7th to 14th, who's not a lap down yet, but they can make up time on an undercut. But they would have had to pit a couple laps ago if they wanted to undercut so much to make their way into the lead.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Trent is in control of this race right now, at least strategy-wise. He can kind of dictate on his terms. And like you said, if he sees someone else make a move, he has plenty of time to react and still retain the track position. That said, if a team is trying to get really tricky out there, I mean, they could send someone who's maybe not quite up at the front, but a little bit behind, maybe in the mid-pack, to try and pit super early, see if they can try and lure him into pitting earlier than would be wise. But at this stage, yeah, they're on lap 92. That'd still only be about 5 laps. It wouldn't be the biggest of differences, as Acosta is in, and he, I think, is the first to blink. Yes, he is.
And I'd expect Dinkle to come in almost immediately. If it's not this lap, the next one, because with that 1 second gain you get from pitting early here, Acosta would only need 4 or 5 laps to jump Dinkle. So I really expect him to come in as soon as humanly possible to minimize any chance of that undercut.
All right, taking his service. Normal stop for the 5-car. Richard Regan Jr. now pits in, and Abner Acosta will come out a lap down. What he really needs is for this race to stay green until everybody else pits, as the 56 hits his marks, goes up on the right sides, now to the left sides, getting the rest of the tires. And let's see if this is a standard stop. It is. In fact, a relatively quick one with a 14 flat, and Trent Dinkle, just as we predicted, is going to follow suit.
But Pat Harvey looks like he might be going long here. If he can pull that off, if he can go as long as humanly possible, he might have a shot at the end if he can make up that ground on newer tires, but I don't know. But he might just be throwing anything he can at the wall here, going as long as possible, hoping for a caution. No, he's coming in immediately. He knows that the undercut is powerful here. He's already behind the two he was fighting with, Acosta and Regan, so he's going to bring it down. He's going to hope to not lose too much ground, and looks like Daniels is in too, and Hudson as well. Eric Hogg's still out on track, though.
The dominoes begin to fall. We're still waiting on a lot of the mid-packers who seem to be trying to go a little longer once again. But many of our leaders trying to cover early instead, just to keep from being undercut on that fresher rubber. Down to 50 laps to go here. So definitely looking at the final third within another lap or two. And it looks like Papineau has come in. He finds his pit stall. Luke Christian was in and out. Hudson has finished his pit stop, and they're starting to get up to speed. Still waiting on Eric Hogg, Mark Kalin, Charles Sumner, Robert Besaw Jr., and Adam Zemke. There's a couple other mid-packers that have not stopped yet. Medina has not been in. Oh, and it looks like somebody overshot. Looks like Zemke.
Yeah, it's got a little bit too deep in there. It wasn't the worst overshooting I've ever seen, but that's a critical couple of seconds you lose by doing that. He wasn't really in the fight for the win. I think he was fighting with Waldo Walden for 8th or 9th, so he's probably going to lose that battle with Waldo unless Waldo made a similar mistake. But here's Beasaw. He's going as long as possible. He's probably going to go until about 15 to go. That's how long he was able to run. But I don't know how much that's going to work out for him as he's fighting with Kalen here. Kalen's probably just going to let him go. There's no point really fighting this. Yeah, Beasaw gets through easily. And if Kalen wants to come into the pits, he can't do that right now. There's a car underneath him. So these two better sort that out quickly if either one of them wants to come in soon. Oh, big loose by Kalen.
Yeah, he's had that a couple times now recently. And he had it in the first stint as well. And again, this is fixed setup. So these drivers can't really do much except tweak brake bias, which I don't think is really much of a thing here at this track. Coming down the back stretch, they're going to have a car going by. Walter Walden trying to get his lap back, and Kalen's aware of it. He's going to leave the bottom lane open and then switch down to the lower side, and another big catch moment out of the final turn.
Yeah, it's every time on that transition off the banking and onto the quad oval. Mark Kalen does not seem to be very comfortable on that transition. I think he's gotten loose just about every single time in the last 10 laps here. We'll watch him do it again. Watch his hands here. It doesn't look like he's getting especially frustrated, which is good, but he's got to figure out something different because you can't keep getting away with that. He's going to lose it again through the quad oval like he did before. Here we go on the transition, and again, same exact thing. So I don't know if there's anything Kalen can do right now. It's a fixed setup race, like you said. You can't change anything. His tires are probably overheated to the max, so I think he's just trying to hang it out here and hope that one of those wiggles isn't finally the big one that puts him in the wall.
I mean, for as much as he's wheeling it out of 4, he's still making it quite a race for Zemke and doing a very good job of it. And of course, Zemke is trying to get a lap back, so that's not for position. He is more so trying to race Robert Beasaw Jr. And we are now into that final third of the race officially. So coming down the backstretch, Beasaw can't retain Adam Zemke, who's going to be able to get up into 14th. Can Kalen follow him through? Doesn't quite look like it. No, that time he almost ran out of track.
Gonna have to start calling that Kalen corner because every single lap, the fans should all be staring at that part of the track because you know you're gonna see a show every single lap. But distracting me from the Mark Kalen show is the fact that Richard Regan Jr. is only 1.7 seconds behind Trent Dinkle now. That was a 4.6 second gap before this pit cycle, and Regan has whatever the quarter equivalent of decimated is. He's destroyed that gap. It's only 1.7 seconds now, and if he can move into that maybe 1 second range, he might have a real shot at Dinkle here.
Okay, the plot thickens, and as they come down to nearly 40 laps to go, there are still some changes happening around the track. Drivers on differing tire strategies are passing or letting go to one another. Abner Acosta, who is back on the lead lap, is still chasing Richard Regan Jr., who's also chasing Trent Dinkle, which means our top 3 to have not pitted are Kalen in 3rd, Beasaw Jr. in 2nd, and Eric Hogg in the lead. Like we said, we're thinking about high 60s in terms of what laps they can do under green flag conditions. I'm checking through real quick. Yeah, last time out for Hogg was 48 and 49. Now that's the equal 3rd mark. Eric is able to switch it up and try to go long in this one, which honestly I don't blame him for doing so, since cautions are probably a little bit more likely here closer to the end, but still he hasn't been able to get one. As Mark Kalen is going to not have to give up a lap, but give up position. That is for 3rd place. Whoa! Right there.
Dinkel's lucky he got by Kalen before he did that. Kalen stuck it on the apex of turns 1 and 2 and really slowed down Dinkel there. That's why the gap is only 7/10 between these two as Regan navigates through Sumner. It's Dinkel versus Regan. There's no lapped cars between them now, so it's a 2-car fight for the lead, and the gap is under a second. So the lap traffic, including Mark Kalen, really screwed over Trent Dinkel on that last lap, and Regan can see Dinkel now. He's ahead of him. The number between them starts with a 0, and I think he's going to start getting really aggressive here.
Also, we saw Medina coming down pit lane. He finally had enough on that one and had to pit in. So Dinkel now past Besaw Jr. And Richard Regan is going to have to try and overtake on Rob to try and catch up. I'm sure that shouldn't be too difficult. Besaw still needs to take his stop, so he's on a different tire strategy himself. We're less than those 40 laps to go. Somebody exiting from pit lane, that was Medina, who just finished his pit stop. And that's coming out right behind Mark Kalen, who has probably been giving a few drivers heart attacks over the course of the race.
Regan navigates through Besaw, but he lost time going through Besaw there. It's evened out now. It's now 1.4 seconds again between Dinkel and Regan. So all that time he gained when Dinkel was behind Kalen, it's all been lost now. And I don't know, can Regan make up a 1.4 second gap under green on a 36-lap run? Dinkel's been so consistent, and he's been so conservative with the tires. I don't know if Regan has the speed, but he's going to have to try something different here, and he's going to have to hope that he can just creep that gap down, maybe by a 10th per lap, and he might have a shot at him.
Well, I'm watching to see what it is this time. The traffic kind of skewed it last time. 30.6 for Dinkel. Regan, 30.9. No, I think the 56 did use up too much of his stuff, because he's now been slower on, I believe, all 3 of the last 3 laps. No, he was quicker. No, he was slower. Yeah, on all 3 of the most recent laps through. So Dinkel must have been preserving them just that tiny little bit better. There is the difference. Last time Regan was quicker on was lap 106.
And Regan's got a big orange problem behind him in that Charles Sumner, he might be a lap down, but he's on 8-lap fresher tires. So he's got to keep looking in his mirror at Charles Sumner, who appears to just be staying out of the way. He appears to just be hanging out back. He doesn't seem to want to make the move, but that's still distracting when you're Richard Regan Jr. You want clean track in front and behind you, and he just does not have that because Charles Sumner is on those fresher tires. He's much faster, but he hasn't been able to make the move, and I don't think he will make the move. I think he's being nice here.
Got another interesting strategy. Eric Hogg only took right side tires. He stayed on the lead lap because of that. We are only down to those 12 drivers left on the lead lap. Eric is the last of them, but this is his first flyer. Let's see what this looks on half old driver, half new. 30.7. That is a couple tenths slower than the leaders, but nothing too drastic. Unfortunately, it probably will mean he'll still go a lap down because they'll probably catch up to him before this is over.
Yeah, I don't think there was any real bonus to doing that because Charles Sumner, oh, another trip through the grass. That's Scotty Johnson, and he's going to park it right next to the pace car. He's done. He was already a couple laps down, but on the topic of Eric Hogg, he's 7 seconds ahead of Charles Sumner. Taking those extra tires would have only been an extra 4 seconds, so I don't think he really gained anything from doing that, but I guess he didn't really lose anything from doing it either, and Sumner isn't especially catching him, so it's an interesting strategy. It's an interesting thing to try, but doesn't appear to be doing very much.
And Kalen finally calls it quits on those tires. He'll go for his second set, and he's only got 30 laps to try and use them, and that's with trying to get his lap back as well, because he is, just going a lap down now as the leaders went by the start-finish line. Regan Jr. has it down to 2 seconds. He's suddenly picked up the pace. No, excuse me. No, he's lost more time. He was closer than that. Apologies. So he is continuing to fade instead. And this is not something that we see often. Somebody that can outpace Richard Regan Jr. I was praising Trent Dinkel's advancements in skill and speed in recent seasons, and this is a real testament to it. If he is running away from Richard Regan Jr., I'd say we can say that Trent has arrived.
And the gap has kind of fluctuated over the last couple laps. It stayed around 2 seconds, but through 1 and 2, sometimes Regan has a better 1 and 2, and through 3 and 4, sometimes he has a better 3 and 4, but it's just equaled out in the middle. Last lap for Dinkel was a 30.99. Last lap for Regan was a 31.0. That's basically exactly the same lap, which is not what Regan wants to see. He wants to see the gap come down, but I guess it's better than losing time, and hopefully for him, in the dying laps of the race, he's going to hope that he has a little bit left under him, which we don't think he does, but he's going to hope he does so he can make up that 2-second gap at the end.
I understand that Kalen also took right sides only. So a couple gamblers out there, but just doesn't seem to be one that's going to pay off all that much unless they need those tires later on. And we get another, or not another, we get a first caution here as onto the back stretch. Watching the fight there between Eric Hogg and Waldo Walden. That's 4 position. This is for 9th place. And coming off of there, Eric's 2 tires. Will they help the car rotate? Will they still give it enough speed at this stage? We ride on board with Eric. And looks like, oh, they are going to pay off because he drops Walden this time through.
Good move by Hogg, and I guess those 4 seconds he gained, that's what allowed him to pass Walden there. He had that little bit less of a gap to catch up. Kalen, he's kind of in no man's land. His 2-tire call didn't really work out as Hogg gets super loose through Kalen corner. You can see him laughing about it. That was a huge save, and Mark Kalen's losing it through turn 1 and 2. It's going insane here on the track as everybody's getting loose early, trying to get used to these new tires.
Knocking on wood, but it's kind of amazing that we've gone this long without a caution with how loose the cars are. Because, yeah, there's only 22 drivers to have started, but in all of that, nobody able to bring out the yellow flag. It's either a testament to the skill of these drivers or this track wasn't as hard as I made it out to be. And again, you can see the 62's tail waggling back and forth there through turns 1 and 2. Kalen currently a lap down, almost 2 laps down, with Trent Dinkel starting to get close from behind. Let's watch from on board. Another little correction for him as the 62 takes that bright orange vehicle around and around, and only has to do so for 24 more laps. And oh, he's got big problems. He's got big problems. He catches it that time and he just laughs it off.
Yeah, that's the reaction I would expect. This car combination, this next-gen car at Texas, the horrific looseness. Some drivers have, mastered it. Nope. Ooh. He kept it out of the wall. That was
less of a laugh. That one.
Yeah. He kept it out of the wall, but he's still losing 2 seconds doing that. So you can really only laugh at that point. But hopefully he can get the car under control here for the last 23 laps of the race. And just looking back up to the front, there's Chris Hudson in the background. He was in the fight for the top 4, but he's lost quite a bit of ground down in 7th. But at the front, the laps are ticking down, and the gap is also decreasing still. Kalen!
I don't think he's saving this one. Oh, he got it. He got it. He did have to take to the grass, but somehow he kept that from hitting the wall or spinning completely around. Man, if I'm Mark Kalen, I'm calling quits on this and putting 4 fresh ones on, because he's gonna cause a yellow at this rate. He's got to come in and take tires.
And this looks kind of funny watching it on the screen, but you have to remember what he's dealing with inside the car. By doing this every single lap, he is overheating those tires, and that's why he's getting so loose. It's almost an endless cycle. It's very difficult to cool down the tires. This time around, he was very conservative through turn 4. I think he is actually putting an effort in to cool down the tires just a little bit, but once you get in that cycle, you might think it's easy to not do that every lap, but Mark Kalin is proving that it is certainly not easy to break out of that endless cycle of overheating.
Down to 20 laps to go. Dinkel still has a handy 2 seconds over Richard Regan Jr. Acosta is on the podium, and that's pretty much all he really needs to do here. He's not going to take the championship as it sits right now, but he is going to put himself into a very comfortable position coming into the final rounds. This is the last race that they're able to use as a drop week, the way that the PRL does it. The season finale is not able to be dropped from their points. Meanwhile, we've got Eric Hogg here, another of our 2-tire stoppers, just ahead of Lou Christian, and just behind Chris Hudson, and a sandwich between them.
This has been a very good drive back for Eric Hogg, and it surprised me. I kind of forgot he was in the race a little bit, but he has made a ton of moves, and now he's making the move on Chris Hudson here up to P7. He started in the top 5. He faded a little bit in the middle of the race. He was getting all out of shape out of 4 every lap, basically, but now he's got that car under control. He's to the inside of Hudson. He's passed him at the line, and he'll be able to continue to drive forward here. I don't think he'll be able to catch Daniels 6 seconds up the road, but P7 is nothing to shake a stick at, and that 2-tire call, it's paid off. He proved me wrong.
So, okay, well, what's the difference then between the 62 and the 89? Both took 2 tires, but the 62 looks diabolical, while the 89 seems to be, as we got a pitter, the 89 is just making inroads, and that is Robert Besaw Jr., who is going to come in finally for his second stop. He made it incredibly far.
Yeah, he was begging for a caution, and that was the only thing that could have saved him there, but unfortunately it never came. He's going to go a lap down, or maybe even 2 laps down. So Besaw's gamble not paying off at all, and he's going to exit pit road here. Is he going to take, did he take 2? Yeah, he took 2 tires as well, so he's going to minimize the time lost, but it's still a lot of time lost. He's a full lap down, not quite 2 laps down, but it's not going to be a top 10 at this rate.
And he's going to come out ahead of Mark Kalin with those fresh right-hand sides. So he is going to be able to run away from that 62, who you can see is just going to get lapped by Zemke, who is now our last driver on the lead lap. So we're down to 10 of them, still green from the very start of this race. So this has been quite an impressive show from our drivers. Looks like Trent Dinkel's starting to lose a little bit of it now. It's 1.4 to Richard Regan. He's picking it up.
I think those slower laps might not have been Regan using his stuff up too early. It might have been him conserving, because he is making up that gap. Last lap for Dinkel, 31.1. Last lap for Regan, 31. That's 1/10. There's 1.3 seconds between them. There's 14 laps to go. If he picks up this pace, he can get to the back of him, but he's got to keep it up for the entirety of the rest of this race. And on that last lap, again, 0.2 faster. He's coming, but can Dinkel respond? And can Regan actually make the pass when he gets up there?
We got a race on our hands. So Richard Regan Jr. has lit a fire under himself and is finally on the go. And we look back from Trent Dinkel as he steers it down into 3 and 4. Yeah, it's going to need to be between 1/10 and 2/10 per lap that Richard is able to cut down on this. This time by 31.1 for Trent. Richard, 30.9. That's another 2/10.
Making up the gap is one thing, making the pass is another. So while Regan might have the pace advantage right now, it's not been the easiest to pass tonight. It's been possible, but you've really got to get your momentum up on the exit of 1 and 2 to get a good enough run down the back straight and then get to the inside. But I think Regan just lost a ton of time there. He got wiggly out of 4. He still made up a 10th, but he's running out of time. He's got to pick up the pace a little bit.
There's 1 lap difference on tires between Richard and Trent. Not sure if that's what's making the difference. I got to think it's more down to the driving style between the pair of them. And this time by, I do believe it's going to be less than a second. If the trend continues, there it just dipped under the 1 second mark between them on the tower on your left-hand side. Goes back up just a little bit as Trent trying to turn it back up himself. 31.167, 31.048. Not as big as it was before, but Richard still pulling him in.
And if you look up the road, Mark Kalin loses it down the back straight, but he saves it. No caution. Mark Kalin almost finally brought out the caution, and this is actually good for Dinkel because he's not going to have to lap him at speed. He's just going to be able to blow right by him. And now through Kalin corner, right in front of Richard Regan Jr. Is he going to duck out of the way here? No. This is actually going to slow down Richard Regan Jr. He's going to get to the inside. Kalen's not going to make it especially difficult, but navigating through that kind of evened the both of them out just a little bit.
Well, and this is a tough call, too. If we had a caution right now, would you pit? We got some laps to go. You'd have a chance to try and make it up, but you'd also be vulnerable if another yellow came out and you find yourself trapped down there a bit. But right now, we're not seeing it, so it might be a moot point. Even still, this time by across, Trent Dinkel, 31.187. Regan, 31.058. Still chipping away.
He is definitely coming, but he lost a bit of ground on that last lap. Doesn't seem to have affected him that much, though. He's in the zone here, continuing to bring that gap down. It was once as much as 4.6 seconds. Now take the 4 away from that, and that's the gap now. It's going to be down to about half a second now here as we cross the line. He's definitely catching, but the worry is he going to run into that bubble? Once you get close to the driver in front, the dirty air will start to affect him, the wash will start to affect him, and will he be able to continue this run forward, or will he be stuck? It doesn't seem like it right now. He's brought it down under 0.4 of a second. I don't know, Dinkel's got to start getting worried here, if he isn't already.
Regan has made methodical work out of this. That's got to be intimidating if you're Trent Dinkel, knowing that he's been able to cut down at this on command bit by bit and try to reel him in. Can he withstand this pressure? We put so much on Richard. Can he catch him? What about Trent? Can Trent hold up in this? Can he keep the car steady, keep the pace up, and try to rebuff any attacks by the time Regan gets up to him here? 6 laps to go. Going to be 5 at the line. It is now down to 0.3 of a second. Just about 15 laps ago, this was at 2 seconds.
Yeah, Regan is 100% there now. There's no question about it. I don't think Dinkel has anything to fight back with other than his defending ability. So now the question becomes, how good is he at Texas Motor Speedway at blocking the run of Richard Regan Jr.? On the exit here, Regan's going to get a great run, but Dinkel doesn't block all the way down to the bottom. But once Regan gets closer, I think he's going to have to start getting very, very aggressive. Take away that preferred bottom in 3 and 4. And you just can't let Regan get down there, because if he does, he's going to blow right by you.
All right, I think we can say he has caught him, and it's at 4 laps to go. So 4 times around, he's going to have an opportunity to try and attack. Does he take it is the question. Trent Dinkel, will he cover down to the inside like we heard Joey suggest? No, he's going to leave it there. Richard Regan Jr. sits and waits patiently. If we get a caution, we will go to green-white checkers for this, so it won't be over. As he tries to carry speed off the corner, he's getting a little loose. Did he use it up?
He's pushing very hard. He got loose through 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, so he's got to be careful here, not to overheat, not to lose himself completely here. But here we go. He's much quicker on exit. He's got the run, but he's not close enough. Can he switch it back here? He's going to switch it over, but I don't think he's got the momentum to stick it to the inside. He's going to think about it, but no. Dinkel had too much there, and he couldn't get it to the inside.
And the 9 was definitely playing defensive. He weaved down to the inside to try and cover off on Richard Regan Jr. 2 laps to go now. A mere 3 miles that these drivers have to try and navigate. And Richard Regan only has those 3 miles to try and make the pass. Trent Dinkel, does he cover the inside once again? Not showing his nose. Regan is going to stay in line. Is he setting him up for the last lap? What is going to happen there? Trent Dinkle comes around to take the white flag with Richard Regan breathing down his neck, and now Richard starts to bobble. Does he have enough underneath him? Is the rubber gone? Trent Dinkle has the advantage as they come around 1 and 2. He needs a momentous run off this corner to keep Richard from trying to overtake him, and it's looking good. Regan does not have the momentum. Trent Dinkle just needs to survive 3 and 4 and the run to the line. Richard Regan Jr. has used up too much of his stuff to try and take the lead away, and Trent Dinkle has done well to withstand the pressure to win here today for the first time this season.
Yes, picture perfect defense from Dinkle there, and I think Regan, he might be regretting not trying a little bit more of a switchback there. He wasn't quite quick enough through the center of the corner to make that gap up, to get the momentum down the back straight, and the one time he did, Dinkle did well to block it off. So perfect defense from Dinkle. Perfect attack from Regan. He just needed a little bit more momentum.
Oh, you could see the huge swig of water that he needed after that one. Trent Dinkle, that was a drive to be proud of. Yes, he started from pole, but knowing that that 56 was coming as fast as he was, he stood up to the test well, and he's going to burn it down as we take a quick break. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced SimRacing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-Box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware, and that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
Welcome back to Texas Motor Speedway. We had yet another different winner, and this time it is Trent Dinkle, who is trying to chase down Acosta. This could be a valuable one, although it did minimal damage in the lead of Abner. It did get him the bonus points of the pole position as he won it from the top spot, did Trent Dinkle. Richard Regan Jr., though, wound up finishing a mere 10th behind him. at the line, chasing him down from 2 seconds back with about 20 laps to go, but just didn't have enough to try and get by. Abner Acosta was third, as I mentioned, losing very few points to Trent Dinkle in his hunt, as Pat Harvey finishes fourth and Josh Daniels finishes fifth. Both of them not out of the championship either, but even less likely at this stage. Eric Hogg was sixth and Chris Hudson seventh. After that, it's Luke Christian P8. Waldo Walden, a quiet day because we didn't talk a whole lot about him. He started from 17th without being able to qualify and climbed up to 9th. Last one on the lead lap, though, was Adam Zemke in 10th.
Then a bunch of drivers went a lap down with a long green flag run. It's almost guaranteed to happen. Charles Sumner finished 11th. Eric Papineau was 12th. Skip Gandy and Robert Besaw Jr. 13th and 14th. Mark Kalin put on a show every single lap. He was down in 15th. Jose Medina, a quiet day in 16th. And Mike Quitt didn't quit. He's 17th. And the used car lot down here, Tom Amasi, Scotty Johnson, Corey Precker, Bobby Anderson, and Byron McDonald all finished multiple laps down. But we've got a driver who led the race basically all the way through. Trent Dinkle, your winner, is with Joe.
Indeed, Trent finally getting a win this season. And Trent, this was under quite the circumstances because, yes, you started from pole, but those last 20 laps, at what point did you see that Richard was gaining on you?
He was pretty quick when we came out of the pits, and then I put a little distance on him, and then I noticed at the end of that second run we had that, he was cruising. And so I was a little nervous, and then he was right on my bumper, and unfortunately I had to race him just a little bit harder than I wanted to race, but, I held him off. So he did make up, he made up probably 4 or 5 seconds on me throughout the pit stops, just pitting, a lap or two before I did every time. So, but, at the end of the day, I was just cruising, and then when he got there, just kept cruising.
Yeah, really did. However, once he caught you, obviously it's a bit of a lopsided fight for the championship between you and Abner, but there was still, or is still, a mathematical chance. So how are you weighing the need to win and the need to just get points when Richard comes up on you? How aggressive does that make you?
Obviously I was gonna win. When I lit that many laps, I already had that happen at Talladega where I didn't end up winning. So, I knew there's really only one line at Talladega, so I knew if I kind of backed him up in the corner in 1 and 2 just a little bit to where he had to touch the brake right before I started getting back in the gas, that it was probably gonna give me the drive to get through 3 and 4 ahead of him. But, and then obviously, Richard's fast. He came from a long ways back, but him off, so it worked out.
It did indeed. And we head off to Charlotte, another 1.5 miles, but pretty different from the current Texas. Like I said, it's a long shot, but what are your thoughts heading into the final round and the face-off with Abner?
I'm going to run a lot of races this week and get a lot of practice, and, maybe I'll have some luck, and Abner will have a lot of bad luck, and it'll be my birthday, so maybe I'll have some extra luck there, and you never know. I'm not counting it over till it's over, but, it is a pretty decent gap right now, so.
I think that's the best attitude to take towards it. You got to keep fighting until that checkered flag falls at the end. But congratulations, sir. That was a well-earned victory.
Thank you.
That was Trent Dinkle, who was your winner here today. And up next, I do believe that Joey has caught up with Richard Regan Jr. on the other end of that equation.
Well, Richard, we all watched the battle at the end there. It was super close. Talk us through your mindset there through those closing laps.
Yeah, I made a mistake in qualifying, which set me back. Only my first time lap counted because I spun in 1 and 2 on my second lap. So that put me behind the 8-ball pretty hard. Never got a caution to try to get the field back together. So, I knew that I was better on the long run than anyone in the field. I just was able to save my tire. They'd pull me a little bit earlier, but I'd be able to close that right back in on the long run. And that second green flag run, I learned a lot. Getting into 1 and 2, I found something that was working really good that I don't know, just no one else could really hit. And So, once we had 15 to go, my spotter respoke. He was keeping me updated on the lap times, and I turned up the wick, and I wish I turned up the wick a lap earlier. The dirty air is really hard, makes it really hard to pass. So, congrats to Trent. Me and him are really good friends, and he's been racing on here for a couple of years now, and he's finally starting to figure it out and be a threat week in and week out.
Well, you mentioned that you knew you were the fastest over a long run, but how hard is it to be patient over the course of a long run and not use up your stuff too early, because you know you'll be able to make up the gap at the end, but how hard is it to be patient in that way?
Yeah, it's super patient. It's super hard to be patient because that first run, I wasn't expecting us to have green checkers racing. So that first run, I was being super aggressive, trying to get as many spots as I could early, and I burnt up my right front. And that was a tough lesson for about 15 laps. I had to cool it back down and try to keep the gap where they were. And at the end of that first run, I started to make more time up. So that's when I knew that, hey, if I save my tire, I can be faster than anyone on the track. So definitely learned it the hard way. I wish I would have not messed up qualifying, because it would have been a better chance for me. I think if I would have started towards the front, me and Trent would have had an awesome battle for the win. But it is what it is.
I'm not going to ask you about the 17 water jugs behind you, but I will ask you about the sponsor behind you. And you want to give them a shout out? How are they working with you?
Yeah, man. Liquid Molly came on board this year. They're looking to get into eSports, and I got picked up by them a couple of weeks back, and it's really awesome to have a big company like that have faith in me and be their guinea pig, sort of, and try to get them as much exposure as we can, being an advertising partner. We also have Gearhead Coffee and Jay-Z Photography. You guys might be familiar with Gearhead Coffee. So yeah, it's pretty cool to have these big sponsors coming in and trying to get them some good exposure.
All right, that was your second place finisher, Richard Regan Jr. And looks like we got one more, Abner Acosta, who is a sort of a distant third, but he's still your championship leader, and he's with Joe.
Absolutely, and heading into the final round with quite the lead. Abner, obviously, you knew this race, you probably just had to collect points. So coming in and finding yourself starting in the middle of the pack, was that sort of a oh no moment to begin things off?
Hello, guys. Good evening. Yeah, I basically, on my second lap, I almost spun out. So, definitely not intended. And I was just, once I knew I was starting in the middle of the pack, I just wanted to make sure I was safe and just be able to finish top 5. Which I got third, which is pretty good, but definitely didn't have anything for Trent or Richard. I'm happy with a third.
I saw a lot of drivers getting loose, especially off of turn 4 today. We didn't really see much of that out of you. What were you doing that helped kept the car so much more stable?
So, I don't think I had any scares during the race, but my pace just, I guess I was using more tire than everybody else. I mean, I'm comparing my stuff to Trent's, and I was just using 8 to 10% more, which I guess that's why I was so much slower than them. But we're just taking it easy. I know Tommy on the wall, he was pretty much saying that I wasn't really arcing turn 1 correctly, so that's probably what was messing up with my tires. But it was, as long as you're safe during the first 5 laps, that's where your car can kind of get snappy loose. After that, it seemed pretty safe to me.
Well, a championship awaits, sir, as we head off into Charlotte. How confident are you feeling considering the buffer that you've built this season?
I feel okay. I mean, Trent just got a lot of points right now. And if my math is right, I think I'm going to be still 25 to 24 points ahead, which is still very good. Just hoping to finish the season strong, just get maybe a top 5, who knows, maybe a win. And I think this is going to be my first one in the Cup car. So if that happens, so definitely excited for that.
I was trying to figure that out myself because I knew you had an oval one in your
The trucks, yeah.
yeah, it was in the truck. So getting both of them will probably be quite a proud achievement. And you are correct; it is 25 points. I just refreshed on the points, and that is the gap after that. Well, congratulations still on another podium. Your I believe sixth different podium, or actually no, I believe seventh different podium of the season. Anybody you got to thank for it?
Everybody at Private Label Team Hype, Trent. Obviously, we bounce things off each other. I know he practices a lot, so he definitely gives me a lot of information coming to the race. Tommy, he always just jumps in and helps with like strategies, like tonight and all that, and basically improving our lines and all that good stuff. And yeah, you guys at GSRC and PRL for hosting the league. Thank you.
That was our third place finisher, Abner Acosta, heading into the final round in the lead in the points. That's going to wrap us up. We want to give a big thank you to the sponsors of the series as well. ASR, they design and build the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. Visit them at advancedsimracing.com. And RaceLab, it helps you to improve your driving skills. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. And ButtKicker. Feel what you've been missing at thebuttkicker.com. And finally, NinjaTrader. Visit ninjatrader.com and get started with a risk-free trading simulator to start tracking your performance. A thank you to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp if you want to find more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Joey, Zach, Dougie, and Nick. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. And check out our merchandise store. It's simply gsrc.storenvy.com, and there's a link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. The next race is the season finale, Charlotte Motor Speedway, Sunday, May 29th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.